If there's one common denominator among the highest-grossing films of the 21st century, it's that most include tremendously elaborate action sequences. There are the colossal sinking ships of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, the explosive pyrotechnics of Michael Bay's Transformers, and the street bikes, crashing through glass and whizzing beneath 18-wheelers, of The Dark Knight. With each year these sequences become bigger, faster, more ambitious and more expensive. Inevitably, they turn more dangerous, too. And the people who bring them to life, the invisible, undervalued warriors of Hollywood, whose days consist of car hits and fire burns and jumps from death-defying altitudes, are the stunt performers. In the last month, the stunt community has been hit hard by not one but two on-set deaths. The first, in July, happened on the set of The Walking Dead, where a 33-year-old stuntman named John Bernico died of blunt force trauma after falling 30 feet onto concrete. Bernico had been rehearsing what was considered a routine fight scene that ended with a descent from a balcony, but he lost balance and fell shortly thereafter. The U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration launched an investigation of the accident. And last week on the set of Deadpool 2, a stuntwoman named Joy Harris was killed in a motorcycle accident. She was a professional road racer and the sport's first black female pioneer, and this was her first time on a film set. A police officer at the scene of the fatal accident on the set of Deadpool 2 photographed Canadian press rec Shutterstock. Bernico's death represented the first stunt-related fatality in the U.S. since 2002 and the only on-set death since 2014, when Sarah Jones, a camera assistant on the uncompleted drama Midnight Rider, was struck by a freight train while filming on a railroad trestle. An investigation into the incident led to director Randall Miller's being charged with involuntary manslaughter, for which he served a year in prison, while assistant director Hilary Schwartz received 10 years probation. In comparison, from 1980 to 1990, 40 stunt-related deaths occurred in the U.S. Some of these accidents took the lives of the stunt performers, while others claimed actors, stunt coordinators and bystanders. In the wake of these tragedies, the stunt community, a close-knit crew of thrill-seekers and physical virtuosi, grieved collectively, and was prompted to consider the existential brinkmanship of their profession. Incidents were analyzed thoroughly, more precautionary measures were taken, and the most infinitesimal mistakes, of the mechanical and human sort, were assessed. But then they got back to work after all. There are more cars to crash, buildings to scale, fights to stage and movies to be made. For years, the conventional wisdom has been that the work of stunt performers has become safer. To a certain extent, that's true. The advent of computer-generated imagery has allowed filmmakers to, say, cover a table in padding before destroying it in a fight scene and then remove the protective fabric in the post-production process. The bruises and broken bones that once were a prerequisite for stunt work are now more easily avoided, at least with small-scale gags, as performers call them. But there remains an intrinsic danger, and a tacit acceptance that the worst-case scenario is death, for those swinging between skyscrapers or being clotheslined by an SUV. It's a terribly fine line when it comes to guaranteeing safety, because in reality there is no guarantee, says Andy Armstrong, who has done stunt coordination for The Amazing Spider-Man, Thor, Planet of the Apes and Total Recall. If these stunts were common, you would want it in the movie. So you're invariably asking someone to do something outside the box, which is where it becomes so difficult to regulate. Andy Armstrong with Andrew Garfield on the set of The Amazing Spider-Man photograph. Andy Armstrong believes that just as sprinters become faster and basketball players taller, film stunts continue to increase in scope and difficulty, the inevitable byproduct of a for-profit industry contingent on novelty and constant reinvention. And pressure mounts as actors like Tom Cruise, who broke his ankle last week roof jumping on the set of Mission Impossible 6, strive for authenticity by performing their own stunts. When CGI first came about, stunt people thought, that's the end of our business, everyone's going to be replaced by computers. Armstrong tells me that hasn't happened, because there's still a certain authenticity to seeing a real human do something. Anderson, who last year published the Action Movie Maker's Handbook, calls it the five-legged horse syndrome. If you've grown up and never seen a horse in your life, and you saw one running in a field with 5 legs, you know it doesn't look right. One victim of a film stunt gone horribly wrong is David Holmes, who doubled for Daniel Radcliffe in the Harry Potter films. In 2009, Holmes was performing a wire gag that involved an explosion when he was jerked backward into a wall and fell to the ground at the Warner Brothers studios in Hertfordshire. He was left tetraplegic and paralyzed from the chest down. I still love the stunt industry. I think it's the best job in the world, Holmes tells me. It's the most exciting job, the most challenging job. But I just think it's such a shame that some directors and producers look at us as cannon fodder. Holmes believes the industry is largely ignorant of the sacrifices made by stunt people. This includes the studios and the governing bodies of most awards shows, where recognition is seldom, if ever, given to the stunt teams that craft and risk their lives for what usually is the most costly and hazardous aspect of filmmaking. When considering whether that recognition would lead to more oversight and, in turn, fewer fatalities, Holmes is hopeful. It's quite upsetting when you realize what people do to tell a story, and if the industry really valued us a little bit more, it would only be a good thing. Elizabeth Davidovich, whose stunt doubled for Gal Gadot and Elsa Pataky, and is a regular on The Walking Dead set where Bernica was killed, believes it's less about recognition than about acknowledging the nature of the job and its attendant perils. Elizabeth Davidovich is a worker on AMC's The Walking Dead photograph. AMC. I researched the shit out of every single person on that rigging team, the department head, the whole group of people who have my life in their hands, Davidovich tells me. A former competitive gymnast predisposed to masochism, Davidovich says she tries to understand the mechanics of the equipment, because sometimes all it takes is one little pin to not be screwed in all the way and that can cause death. Asked if she has ever considered leaving the stunt world for safer pastures, Davidovich, who has also worked on the Fast, Furious and Hunger Games franchises, is defiant. Actually, no. I was waiting for that, especially after John's passing, because that really hit me hard, she says. I kept waiting for that feeling of dread, like do I even want to keep doing this, and it never even once crossed my mind. The only thing that kept going over and over again was how can this never happen again? Armstrong, who hosts seminars about action filmmaking and stunt coordination, believes the Screen Actors Guild, the labor union representing more than 100,000 film and television performers, has too little jurisdiction over who is allowed to work on set. The Guild greatly underestimates the skill set of the stunt coordinator, because here's an interesting statistic for you: there's no qualification system for a stunt coordinator whatsoever, Armstrong tells me. Say you've got a movie going every day, you get up and grab breakfast at your favorite diner. The waiter or waitress there knows how you like your eggs, how you like your coffee, but that person also has a SAG card. He continues, there is no rule in place to stop you from saying to that waiter or waitress, why don't you come be the stunt coordinator? So on Friday someone was serving coffee and pancakes, and on Monday as the stunt coordinator on your movie. Armstrong recently hosted a seminar in New York where he heard a story that neatly distilled some of the regulatory malfeasance plaguing the stunt industry. A firefighter asked a coordinator if he had a permit for a full burn, when a stuntman is set on fire, protected by non-flammable fabrics like Nomex and flame-retardant skin gel. They suddenly realized you need a permit to set a car or a trash can on fire, but you can set a human on fire with no permit, he tells me. In a funny sort of way, that's a perfect analogy for the business. As it turns out, Hollywood underestimates not only the specialized skill set needed to work in stunts, the right-left brain divide, the peculiar mix of both artistry and physicality, as Davidovich put it, but also the selflessness of these performers, who every day put themselves in harm's way to serve a larger purpose. Part of what makes us successful is how anonymous we are, Davidovich says. If my ego comes in and starts posting all over social media, look, this is me on a motorcycle in Fast 5, it starts to take away from the illusion. Says Davidovich, I have to be content with the attaboys I got that day on set, because if you want fame, then stunts is not for you. Naturally, there's a period of bitterness and resentment following the tragedies that befall their stunt brothers and sisters. But one prevailing theme from conversations with many stunt performers is a rather extraordinary lack of regret. I'm sitting here, I'm paralyzed, I'm in pain every day, Holmes tells me. Life's very difficult for me now, so I have good days and bad days. He adds, and on the bad days, I curse the film industry, of course I do. But on those bad days, you know what I do, I put on a good film.